Hello everybody, the Lawn Gnome is here.
We know.
So before 2020 comes to a close, we're actually going to be bending the rules a little bit, if you will, because of the fact that getting to go to a movie theater right now where I live is still, I'm not going to say impossible, but the experience that you want for the price that you're going to have to pay at this point in time is really just not worth it until we actually get back to some kind of a sense of normalcy. So there are a couple of movies that are in fact coming to movie theaters, but because it's very hard for me to see them, they are coming to streaming services a little bit faster. So even though I am not actually seeing them in theaters, if it's a 2020 release that is actually coming to streaming in 2020, I don't classify it as a one that got away, and this is actually a new movie review for you. And I am also just going to let you all know that this is how it's going to be when it comes to Christopher Nolan's Tenet, which is officially coming to streaming services on the 15th of December, so that means I will be able to actually see that movie and review it for you before the year is over. So it counts. So, we're going to be talking about the final installment of the 20th Century Fox X-Men franchise that actually began with the original X-Men film 20 years ago. Oh my lord. And this movie is The New Mutants, and it is a movie that everybody has been talking about for a very long time because this was a movie that has been in such dire straits since the acquirement of Fox by the Disney company. Nobody knew if this movie was actually going to come out because it kept getting pushed off, and nobody knew if it was going to even be in theaters or actually go to streaming. Well, it did get a theatrical release, ironically, on my birthday this year, but I wish I could have actually seen it in theaters. So, just in case you don't know who the New Mutants are, they, of course, are based on the X-Men comic book that is the next generation of mutants, and they are being groomed by the Xavier School to become the next X-Men team of the future. And like the comic book, what they definitely did get right is they give us the original five. We get Wolfsbane, who is played by the Game of Thrones wonderment that she is, Maisie Williams, Anya Taylor-Joy, who plays Ilyana, aka Magic, who also is, she's not talked about that in the movie, but she is the younger sister of the X-Man Colossus. We also get Sam Guthrie, who is played by Stranger Things as Charlie Heaton, and he is Cannonball. And we get the other two, who are Henry Zaga, who plays Sunspot, and Blue Hunter, who plays Moonstar. So, this movie is a movie that I was very interested in seeing because of the fact that I have seen all the X-Men films, the good, the bad, and the absolutely ugly. So, even though I was hearing that this movie was getting a mixed bag, I still felt that at some point in time I should see it, just to say that I have seen and talked about all of the X-Men films. So, if I'm gonna be 100% honest with you guys, I really don't know how to sum up this movie. I am definitely going to say that this movie is a mixed bag. It is not the best movie in the X-Men franchise, but it's not a bad movie. Although, if there's anything that I could say that is the worst thing that could ever happen to this film, is there was so much untapped potential, and as a comic book reader and someone who has read a great deal of New Mutants comics, there was so much more that could have been done to make this movie truly spectacular and give the Fox X-Men franchise a proper send-off. Although, to its credit, there is one thing that really does hold this movie to its merits, and that is the acting. I think that every actor in this film was fantastic, although I would say that we didn't get enough screen time with Henry Zaga. I did like him as Sunspot. In the comics, he is the comic relief, and I did actually like that about him, even though unfortunately he does seem to be a little bit of an asshole in this film. But I loved the chemistry between all the characters. I thought that Maisie Williams was on fire. I loved her as Rain, aka Wolfsbane, and I just really think that they got her right in regards to the portrayal of the character in the comics. Rain is a woman of faith. She is someone who is very scared of her powers, but when she uses them, she is just a hurricane. I absolutely love that. I like Charlie Heaton as well as Cannonball, but the one thing I didn't like was I think they made him a little too morose and a little bit aloof. He is definitely a ray of sunshine in the comics, and I love Cannonball. He's one of my favorite X-Men / X-Force, whatever team he is on these days. But even though I did still feel that the acting was great, the movie, of course, does revolve around Blue Hunter, who plays Moonstar, Danny, of course, and they definitely gave her a great character development story, and I also thought that she played off the rest of the cast wonderfully. I definitely loved her acting performance, but Taylor-Joy, she was a joy. I loved her as Ileana, and I just loved the special effects that they gave in order to make her mutant power truly come to life, especially considering the fact that we did get to see a little bit of Limbo, which is pretty much her claim to fame. But I will say that for cinematic value, they did make a lot of changes. It's a little bit of a romance that is still to this day accepted by some but not accepted by others, and honestly, I'm not against those kinds of things in film, but I know that these characters do not swing that way, so I was a little upset that they sort of twisted the characters and bended it a little bit relationship-wise, but you know what? If it was going to just move the story to a degree, which it actually did, it allowed Danny to be a little bit more open and a little less afraid, and it also made Rain just find someone and make her feel that she wasn't alone, so I really did appreciate that as well. But there were so many gaping plot holes in this movie that, as an X-Men fan, I was just yelling. I was like, no, why are you holding back? Why can't we just get more of this? I mean, I would have loved to have seen more of Limbo. I was also not happy with the fact that Lockheed, the Purple Dragon, is in this movie and doesn't belong to the right owner. You may not understand what that means, but if you read X-Men comics, you know who Lockheed is, and you know who Lockheed belongs to. But ironically, in the film, it sort of makes sense considering the fact that Lockheed's true owner has already been featured in a couple of the X-Men movies, and they really didn't make this character act as if she does have a little purple dragon on her shoulder. But of course, the one thing that just truly grinded my gears in regards to this movie was we finally got the Essex Corporation back in the X-Men storyline. We were teased at the end of X-Men Apocalypse in the post-credit scene, and we didn't see the Essex Corporation at all in Dark Phoenix, and that was so angering to me because if you don't know what that means, I'm going to give you some X-Men 101. Essex Corporation, the word Essex, stands for the last name of Nathaniel Essex. Who is that? That's Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister is also one of the oldest mutants who got his powers from Apocalypse. He was alive since the late 1800s, and he was a geneticist. He was obsessed with mutant genes. He is obsessed with Cyclops and Jean Grey because he believes that the child that the two of those mutants can produce can make the ultimate mutant that he wanted to just manipulate and control. And of course, if you didn't know, in the comics, that turns out to be Cable. But the fact that we don't even get more of the layers peeled back from the Essex Corp, the fact that we don't even see Mr. Sinister at all, just pissed me off beyond belief, because if we could have gotten a little bit more, if we could have actually gotten Mr. Sinister in this movie, I think that that would have been the proper send-off for the X-Men franchise. I did, however, appreciate the fact that they did talk about the X-Men and Professor Xavier to a degree, but the fact that the story of the New Mutants is a lot more lighthearted and much more hopeful and doesn't go in this direction, because if I am to guess, they were basically being trained to become the Marauders and not become the X-Men, and again, not something that happens in the comics, not something that I was overly satisfied with. I really liked the fact that they did try to go a little bit more in a horror direction, but again, for the New Mutants, as someone who loves the characters, I just wish that they could have gone in the traditional direction with this story and gave us the New Mutants that we actually do know. But all in all, the movie itself just had so much much potential that was just wasted, and it just really upset me to see that this whole franchise, 20 years made, just didn't get the send-off that it deserves. Although I will say that at least it was a little bit better than the send-off that we got with Dark Phoenix. I'm just going to say that right now. But I will say that if you just want to be a completionist and you want to get your fill and finalize yourself with New Mutants, that's definitely a good movie that you should check out. It's not so hard to get on streaming services now. It's not a movie that I'm going to want to see again, and it's not a movie that I'm going to want to own on DVD. Quite frankly, the best way to send off the X-Men franchise was Logan, and that is definitely one of the best movies that the X-Men franchise gave us in the entirety of its 20-year run. So now we're just looking forward to seeing what's going to happen when the mutants officially enter the MCU and what kind of X-Men movies we are going to get. And before I give my star rating, I just want to say that I am hoping that Kevin Feige will take some of this amazing talent that was forged in these X-Men movies and bring them into the current MCU for future X-Men movies, because some of these actors played these roles well. I would love to see Sophie Turner and Ty Sheridan return as Jean Grey and Cyclops. I would love to see Maisie Williams come back as Wolfsbane. She was fantastic in this movie. And I would also love to see Anya Taylor-Joy come back as Magic for a future movie, because if the X-Men franchise can truly become what became of the Avengers, then, oh man, Inferno. Let's do Inferno, everybody. I'm going to be giving the New Mutants 2 stars out of 4. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Please leave your comments in the box below, and let's discuss the New Mutants, and I will see you in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.